It is 83 days till the man burns, and today I'm going to show you how to make a dressmaking dummy out of some household stuff. So the first thing you need is an old shirt, something with sleeves and a neck preferably. I do not have one, so I'm going to use some cling film to cover any areas that I don't want to get tape on, because trust me, the tape, it's not comfortable. I've got two kinds of tape. I have like a parcel tape and a masking tape. The easiest way to do this would be with a very thick tape like duct tape or gaffer tape, but I don't have any, so we're going for these and we're just going to hope that it works and that I have enough tape. And you need some scissors for cutting. By the way, the shirt is going to get cut as well, so make sure it is a shirt you don't mind saying goodbye to. And you'll need something to stuff the final dummy with. So I'm just going to use carrier bags because I have a cupboard full of them. So I need to use them up somehow. And my dummy isn't going to be on a stand because I just don't have anything I can use as a stand. But you could use a tripod. You could use like an old lamp thing, a lamp stand. Get creative. See what you've got lying around that you could use. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that all of your hair is pinned out of the way because we don't want to get sellotape in our hair. And then we're going to start cling filming areas that we want to protect. So I want to protect my neck and my chest. Oh, that was a bit of a fail. Pretend that didn't happen, guys. This is obviously something that's going to be a million times easier if you have a second person, so someone that can, help you do this. I don't know, so we're just gonna do our best. Obviously be super careful when you're wrapping things around your neck as well. You don't want to end up strangled by cling film. So now my exposed areas are covered. By the way, it gets really, really warm when you do this, like seriously warm, so don't do it on a hot day. So when you make clothes, there's like certain points that you use as measurements. So your shoulders, under your bust, your waist and your hips are normally like the measurements that you would take if you were making a custom dress. So those are kind of the points that we really want, and the neck. Those are the points that we want to have really accurate measurements of, or, to be accurately done. So I'm going to start with under the bust because that's kind of the firmest place, I guess. And so we want this one to be quite tight. Not tight so it's squeezing you, but just nicely secure, like I can still breathe, it's not uncomfortable, but can you see? So I can still breathe, it's still comfortable, but it is like nice and secure. If I was measuring myself with a tape measure, this is the kind of tension that I would use. Whatever you do, don't like breathe in to make yourself thinner when you're doing this, or wrap the tape too tight, because you're going to be in this for a while and it's going to be really uncomfortable if you do that and a bit hard to breathe. So now we're going to kind of make like a harness, and we're going to go from the center point up and over the shoulder, and you want this one to be nice and loose. You don't want it to be like pushing in on you. And then at the back, we're going to attach it to the center point of this strip on your back. This is obviously much easier if you have someone helping you. And then we're going to do the same the other side. If you are doing this alone, you're not going to be able to see what you're doing in the back unless you have a nice mirror setup, which I don't. You can kind of feel where the tape is and where you need to stick it, and if there are small holes in what you do, it's not the end of the world. We can fix that at the end once we take the shell off. So now we're just going to build that up more by adding another like V shape. And now we're going to start going around. And again, you don't want this to be super tight. If it's really tight, it's going to be so uncomfortable. And any clothes you make are just, they're also going to be uncomfortable because you're making them to, you know, a smaller size than your size. Like, it's nice to be able to breathe in your clothes. So now that we've got the top bit done, we are going to come back and do the neck. I hate having things around my neck, so I'm going to do it at the end. But now we're just going to go all the way down to the bottom of the shirt. And make sure that you don't go over the shirt. Like, straighten it out before you start. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult to get off. And don't want to end up accidentally ruining your trousers. So for this, I'm going to start at the hips and work my way up. One of the easiest ways to not go too tight with it is to actually like pull the tape out instead of kind of pulling it out as you're wrapping it around your body. When you pull it as you're wrapping, the tape ends up being really tight. Okay, so I have my suit going all the way down. So now we're going to do the neck bit. Just check that you are actually all covered. So now I'm going to do the neck, and I'm getting the tape out before I wrap it because you really, really do not want this to be tight. Want it to be nice and loose. Try not to get too much hair in there because it kind of hurts. So now I'm just filling in any remaining gaps. So because I can't see what's going on the back and I know that I have a big gap at the top, what I'm going to do is I'm going to like stick the tape to the center of the neck piece and then just kind of bring it down so that at least there's something there to kind of guide you. The masking tape is much firmer, so if you have someone with you, you can get them to put on the top layer. That's really going to give this more structure, but it's very difficult to do on your own. You're probably going to leave lots of gaps that you're going to need to fill in. So I'm going to cut mine up the middle so that I can take it off like a shirt, and then I'm going to put on the masking tape. But what that means is you might end up losing a bit of the structure and it's not going to be like completely form-fitting, but if you're really careful then it could work. So I'm being really careful to only cut the old shirt and the tape and not, you know, my skin or my trousers or anything else that's underneath this. Guys, it's so hot. I'm sweating so badly. Okay, so you can see the shirt I was wearing underneath. It is cut up the middle. And the arms are very tight, so I'm going to have to cut those as well. Ideally, if you're wearing a shirt, then that shouldn't happen. You should be able to just kind of slip it off. But I have tape stuck to my skin, so hooray! So if you get the tape stuck to your skin, you may end up with a few bruises from where you have to pull it off. So I do not advise doing this alone. I advise getting someone to assist you guys. Okay, so we're going to go to my little DIY table and we're going to turn this into a dressmaking dummy, hopefully. So now we've got our shell, so we need to fix this cut we've made up the center of it. If you've used a really thick tape, then this is going to be really easy. You can just align the bottom and the top of the cut and tape all the way up it. If you've used something like parcel tape like me, then it's going to be a bit more difficult. And so you're trying to line up kind of any jagged points on that split to tape over them so that everything ends up being like correctly aligned. Do the same with the arm splits if you had to split that. And I mean, anything that you cut to get your suit off, seal those back up with tape. Then we're going to flip it over and deal with the back. And you can see I've got like a huge hole at the top of mine and a few gaps where I missed when I was wrapping the tape. So we're going to seal up all those gaps with tape and then fill in that top area. And with the top area, it's a bit tricky. If yours is as much of a state as mine, then it can be a little bit tricky to get everything perfectly lined up. So again, just, really take your time. Use the cling film and the top you're wearing underneath as kind of a guide of how that should be, where everything should be aligned. Once everything is taped up, it's all looking great, you've got all those holes filled in, all those seams sealed back up, it is time to stuff your dummy. I'm using supermarket carrier bags. I'm sure that everyone just has a million of these floating around their house, so I'm using up all of those. And you don't want to overstuff it. If you overstuff it, then you might end up unintentionally warping the shape of your dummy. So you're aiming for it to be fairly firm, for it to be able to stand up on its own, for it to really hold its own shape, but just not to be so full that, it's kind of starting to bulge a bit. So I know I didn't mention needing cardboard at the beginning, and you can do this without the cardboard. It's just having a cardboard base on the bottom is just going to make things a bit easier. It's going to make the bottom hold its structure a bit more and give you a really nice flat bottom so that, if you want to sit it on a table or something, if you're not using a stand, it's going to be easier to do that because the bottom's flat. So I've got some cardboard and I'm sticking my dummy on top of it and drawing around it so that I know where I want to cut. And because we don't have the masking tape shell, it's still quite, it's not very structured, so you might have to kind of squish it about a bit so that you do get a truer shape to what the bottom of the dummy should look like. And it's best to cut this a bit bigger at first and then trim it down until you get it to the right size. Then I'm sticking that cardboard into the bottom of the dummy and taping over it. So the whole outside exterior should be a shell of tape, and then you've got the cardboard piece sitting underneath in the bottom. And now it's time to wrap the whole thing in masking tape. But before you start with the masking tape, kind of squish everything around a bit so that it looks right. Make sure there's no weird bulges and, that it looks like your body. And then I'm just starting from the bottom and wrapping it up like a mummy. When you get to the top, I am creating that V shape that we created when we first did the tape over the bust. And then filling all of the gaps across that. It's not so important how you do this because the dummy is very light. The reason we needed the V was kind of to support the weight. But, with this, there isn't that much weight. So we're not trying to kind of hold things up and support anything. So you can really just wrap this in the way that makes sense to you and, is easiest for how your dummies come out. Then once you're done, just give it a once over, make sure there's no gaps or anything like that. If there are, fill those in with masking tape as well. Seal off the top of the neck and the bottom of the arms. Basically, you want to get as much of it as you can covered in the masking tape. I'm not bothering to do the bottom where the cardboard is under the tape. I'm not masking taping over that because it's not really a part of the dummy that you're going to be using when you're making clothes. It's more, it's the base of the dummy that's going to be sitting on a table, or if you've made a stand, going to be attached to the stand. So that's it, guys. I hope that this was helpful. I hope your dummies came out and you managed to not bruise yourself or get too hot and sweaty while you were making it. And have loads of fun making stuff on it. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.